Today Brad Pitt's one of the most bankable movie stars in Hollywood, and one of the few actors audiences will pay to see no matter what sort of role he's playing, whether it's action, drama, or comedy the script calls for. Having Brad Pitt's name above the title is about as close as anyone can come to a guarantee for a hit film. So, let's take a look at 10 of Brad Pitt's best movies. Number 10. A River Runs Through It. Brad Pitt was nearly 30 when A River Runs Through It came out, but he was mainly known for a bit role in Thelma and Louise and Cool World, where he played a police detective that winds up in a world of cartoons. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? It was not. In A River Runs Through It, in which he played an extremely troubled son of a minster in 1920s Montana, Pitt was finally able to show his range. The film was a huge commercial and critical hit, and it set Pitt up for an amazing run over the next few years. Number 9. The Tree of Life. Nothing gets a cineast's anticipation humming like news of a new Terrence Malick film, and since Malick is nothing if not deliberate, we had plenty of time to hum over Tree of Life. The product of Malick's progressively harder-to-contain ambition, Tree of Life took viewers from the dawn of life to the 21st century, leaving plenty of room for solid acting from Pitt and Jessica Chastain, as well as hosannas from critics like Salance Andrew O'Hehir, who deemed it a noble crazy, a miraculous William Butler Yeats kind of crazy, alive with passion for art and the world, for all that is lost or not lost and still to come. Number 8. Moneyball. As a freakishly entertaining, by-the-numbers account of how the Oakland A's use newly adapted metrics to turn conventional baseball wisdom on its head, Michael Lewis' Moneyball seemed like one of the least cinematic bestsellers to have its film rights optioned by a major studio. And after directors David Frankel and Steven Soderbergh departed the project, it looked like it might be destined for the scrap heap. But with Bennett Miller behind the cameras and Pitt lending his rumpled charisma to the role of A's GM Billy Beane, not to mention an Aaron Sorkin screenplay, it ended up being not only a 6-time Academy Awards nominee, but a $110 million box office hit. Number 7. Legends of the Fall. Just 2 years after A River Runs Through It, Brad Pitt made another movie about tragic characters living in Montana around the time of the First World War. This time around, it's about 3 brothers living in the remote wilderness who all fall in love with the same beautiful woman, played by Julia Ormond. It's the sort of sweeping, epic tale that Hollywood rarely makes these days. It grossed $160 million, and helped cement Brad Pitt as a major leading man. Number 6. Inglorious Bastards. Quentin Tarantino was in a rare downward period of his career by early 2009. His last movie, Grindhouse, was a complete flop and it looked like he might be past his peak. Then he released Inglorious Bastards, an alternate history World War II movie where Brad Pitt leads a group of Jews that enact brutal revenge on the Nazis. It pulled in $322 million, and set up a whole new chapter of Tarantino's career. Number 5. 12 Monkeys. It's 2035 and a horrific virus has killed 99% of the population. The survivors live underground in squalid conditions, and they send Bruce Willis back in time to stop the virus before it starts. But they accidentally send him back 6 years early, and he winds up in a mental institution where he meets Brad Pitt. It's The Stand meets The Terminator, and it's one of the few times that director Terry Gilliam made a movie that caught on with the mainstream audience. Number 4. True Romance. Years before Quentin Tarantino was famous, he was employed at a video store and working on a screenplay about a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. He shot the movie himself in 1987 and called it My Best Friend's Birthday, though a fire destroyed over half the footage. Crazily enough, About 5 years later Tarantino reworked the screenplay and director Tony Scott turned it onto true romance. Brad Pitt only has a tiny role, but he made the most of it. He worked with Tarantino in a much more substantial way when they teamed up in 2009 for Inglorious Bastards. Number 3. Snatch. After the success of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, British director Guy Ritchie was given the opportunity to make another heist film with an increased budget and bigger stars. Brad Pitt played an Irish boxer that gets mixed up with dangerous gangsters who want him to fix a fight. It's an extremely fun movie with an enormous cast, and it grossed $84 million. Number 2. 7. There are dark movies. Then there are really dark movies. And then there's a really, really dark movie like David Fincher's 7. It's the kind of film that begins with a series of heinous, incredibly graphic murders, and only gets darker from there. Brad Pitt plays a cop in a bleak, perpetually rainy city that seems just a shade nicer than hell. We won't ruin the famous ending, but let's just say it involves a damp cardboard box and a very unhappy Brad Pitt. And after all. Number 1. Fight Club. 4 years after 7, Brad Pitt teamed back up with director David Fincher on this cult classic about an office drone, Edward Norton, who befriends a soap salesman, Pitt, and joins a club where men pound the shit out of each other for sport. It's a wildly clever movie that rewards repeat viewings, and once again we won't give up the ending, but there's a reason why fans have made their own edits of the film that completely remove Brad Pitt from the action.